Hello, and welcome. We're finally here. After 10 years at least, Attack on Titan has ended. And while the debate on the quality of the ending still rages on, I thought it would be fun to rank every episode of the series. Why? Because I want to add more ashes on the fire. But more seriously, because Attack on Titan is my favorite anime. With the series now finished, I wanted to make a video expressing my love for Attack on Titan, and I thought perhaps the best way would be to go through every single episode in the series, which is why you should join me as I continue my journey to discover the perfect anime. Now, I should say at the beginning that after this intro, I will be spoiling the entirety of Attack on Titan. So if you're someone who has not yet watched the masterpiece that is this anime, please stop watching the video, but be sure to leave a like and subscribe first until you have done so, as I think it would be a disservice to spoil the incredible twists of Attack on Titan to you this way. Now, I would also like to say that there are no bad episodes in this anime. Even the worst episodes of Attack on Titan would still be pretty good in any other anime. And I am planning on ranking not only every episode, but both special episodes and the OVAs, because I think that would be fun. Now, since there are 87 episodes, 8 OVAs, and 2 special episodes, I'm going to be pretty quick talking about them because there's a lot to go through. Starting off with what I think is the least best episode in this series. Idol might be the best OP of 2023, but it's easily my least favorite episode of Attack on Titan, and I don't think I'm the only one who thinks that, since if you type in Idol Attack on Titan into Google Images, the first thing that comes up is Idol Mikasa. Highlights of the episode include Pixis' speech, but more impressively his call to attention, and how anyone is able to hear him from up there. And Eren having some sick ODM action, but other than that, the episodes I've ranked pretty low are ones that not much happens. And this episode ends with Eren losing control and trying to attack Mikasa. I never really liked this moment back then. The Troust arc is already tense enough. We didn't need Eren to lose his control, since it happens again later in the season. Overall, this is the most forgettable episode to me. This is another episode that's always irked me. I understand that everyone is really antsy about the possibility of Eren being a threat. If only they knew. But this whole episode is designed to just make the military police look like cowards and the scouts cool. And hey, it succeeds, but man, does it not hold up on rewatches. That being said, there's one great moment from this episode. This is often regarded as one of the worst episodes of the series. Honestly, I don't think it's that bad, but I put it at the third lowest ranked here for a reason. And that's because everything just seems to work out a bit too well. I'm gonna make my mom a Titan shifter. No, you ain't. Let's stop fighting about this. Where's Annie? There she is. Mikasa, I've always looked up to you, and now I'm dying. Give me my scarf back. It's like they had 3 episodes here all condensed into one. I like the moment at the end when Jean, Anya Capone, and Yelena are rescued by Peak, and while the final moment can be goofy, hey, I find it cool. The only other thing worth note here is that this episode has 2 different moments where a character mentions brushing Titan teeth. At least they care about dental hygiene on Paradise. Of all the episodes that could have been titled Erwin Smith, I'm surprised that this is the one that went with that. This is people stand around and talk the episode. Yeah, they capture the female Titan, but they did that last episode, so I guess the important thing is to see her scream here. Erwin Smith is a badass, but deserved a better episode to be named after him. I know this episode might seem rather low ranked within the arc that it takes place in, but this entire episode is mainly an after effects of better episodes before it and the setup to better episodes coming. It was really cool seeing Eren use his hardening for the first time, but there's not much else that happens here. I did find it pretty hyped to see Historia gearing up and getting ready to fight, as well as Erwin saying that they won't evacuate the city. So when there are episodes that go really well together that I'd rank them on the same exact placement, I'll just put them both here at once. Now, I don't hate the female Titan arc, but I do think it's probably the weakest arc in the series. I don't understand why Erwin needed this trap to be so deep into the forest. Plus, with all the scouts who die in these episodes, the trap doesn't succeed, so it feels like it was all for nothing. And honestly, if Eren did fight Annie right there and then with Levi and his squad, then they likely would have won. Capturing the traitor was the goal, but maybe they could have done that too. It is nice to see how the members of Squad Levi build up so much trust with each other, and eventually Eren too, but on rewatches, it feels so bleak knowing what happens, which was probably the intention. This episode is loved by many because there's our Disney princess. For being called Special Operations Squad, this should have been titled Sunny and Beans, since in this episode they're the main characters and they're dead. There is one great moment here though with Erwin's line at the end. This is pure melancholy the episode as we get some bonding time between Armin, Mikasa, and Hannes too after Erin's been kidnapped. I like the flashback and I like getting to know more about the snacks they eat. Like I'd assume the scouting expeditions don't go for very long, but you need to eat something. This episode really isn't bad at all. It's an emotional moment between everyone here, but it's just that we've already had these in this series already and done better than. This episode has the misfortune of being sandwiched between several really good ones. I'm glad that Season 4 doesn't have the pre-episode or entire series recaps that happen in the earlier seasons, which you see in other anime too, but I bring it up because this exchange between Hanji and Eren is pretty funny. Other than that, this isn't a bad episode either. Like I said, Attack on Titan doesn't have bad episodes. We're well past the part of episodes that have moments that annoy me. But here there's so much that gets discussed as the political situation becomes more dire in Paradise. However, the real highlight of this episode to me is the conversation during the flashback with all of our goofballs. If this episode had a tighter focus throughout, I'd rank it a lot higher. And the final episode I've placed in OK tier. There's a lot of things I like about Old Story, especially since my favorite character in Attack on Titan is Erwin Smith, and his story isn't far behind. But like with the past few episodes, I think the only problem here is that it's just between too many great episodes that it doesn't necessarily stand out. Both of their stories are melancholic and beautifully paint the setting of what Paradise is really like. And then you have the increasingly dire situation between the Survey Corps and the government. Once again, not a bad episode, just there's too many great ones in Attack on Titan, so I've got to draw the line somewhere. This is the largest section of the ranking. Here's where episodes definitely form more of an identity, but aren't amongst the heavy hitters of Attack on Titan. Despite the lower end ranking, I still think this is a rather good episode, hence being in the good tier. I'm glad everyone in the Alliance is able to air out their grievances. An episode like this was necessary. It'd be kinda silly if they went around and said, "Hey man, remember when I killed your best friends? Good times. You should have been there." Oh wait. My only gripe is that it seems like this was the episode where the animation ran out of budget, as much of it is just shots of the trees. And hey, I'm not knocking that. Attack on Titan has some very beautiful trees. I hate for anything bad to happen to them. Oh, come on! Hey Armin, tell them not to shoot us. Hey guys, don't shoot us! Not gonna lie, I always forget that these are two different episodes. They're not the most eventful other than getting to the point that most people when first knowing about Titan Shifters existing aren't too fond of them, but I much prefer how it's done here than in episode 14. Oh yeah, and episode 9 has the first real Levi action, nice. And now we get to our first OVA episode, and I have to admit that I'm surprised that this was the first one they made. Let me give you some context for these. Attack on Titan has 8 total OVA episodes, and 5 are made between seasons 1 and 2. This was the drought of Attack on Titan. Season 1 came out when I was a freshman in college, and when season 2 came out, I had already graduated an entire year before. For the majority of that time, we didn't even know if Attack on Titan would be getting a season 2. And let's be honest, most anime don't get a second season in the first place. So in between, WIT produced 5 OVA episodes as well as Kabaneri the Iron Fortress, but we don't need to talk about that. I bring this up because as a fan of Attack on Titan during this time, these 5 OVA episodes were all we had for 4 years to tide us over. Or we could read the manga, but I stayed anime only the entire ride. I don't really have concrete proof of this, but I remember hearing that this was because the studio wanted the manga to get considerably further than where his second season would get to. So with that being said, Ilse's Notebook was a special chapter side story from the 5th manga volume. And it's alright. It does flesh out more of the world, and it's cool seeing the Survey Corps operate how they used to. But I find it hard to believe Hanji needed to convince Erwin to capture the Titans. This was the dude's reaction to finding out the slightest bit of them from the end of season 2. And he's hesitant on trying to capture a few test subjects? I don't get it. But watching this after finishing the series, it is pretty funny how this spoils the entire Subjects of Ymir twist, but we didn't know anything about that at this time. This is a much needed slower paced episode to bridge much of the gaps between season 3 and 4. There's actually a lot to enjoy with this episode, the character interactions, a quick pace, but I find myself having to go back and remember exactly what happened here, as this is the start of when the story gets political on the Isle of Paradise. Not bad, it's a nice cooldown after the Marley arc. This is perhaps the closest any episode gets to becoming a slice of life outside of one of the OVAs, and I mean that in a good way. Attack on Titan is such a tense series with tragic moment after brutal setback. Having an episode where most of the cast just kicks back and acts like a bunch of dweebs is a great way to breathe a sigh of relief. That being said, there's one moment in this episode that I need to talk about, and that's what happens during the end credits. This is one of my favorite episodes to show people for the first time, because when the ED gets interrupted is perhaps one of the scariest things I had seen yet in the show, and when I show my friends, I love it when they turn around and see me looking at them like I'm the smiling Titan. Well done, Studio Wit. Here's the second OVA I'm ranking, and the last one released, being right at the beginning of Season 3. It's such an unusual episode of Attack on Titan being the only time the series has had a what-if scenario. In this case, what if the kidnappers didn't kill Mikasa's parents? And here it's explained that despite still having a great relationship with Eren, he will still die. It's so weird watching an episode like this because it's the only time the series has something along the lines of a supernatural element, unless you count the Titans, but it's all in her head as she tries to wrap around the loss of Eren during the Trost arc. I do like what they're going for here. It's such a cool concept to see done, but at the same time, I feel like this is what we'd see if Attack on Titan was an anime from the 2000s and had filler episodes. I'm not opposed to filler episodes on a principle level. They could be like this and show what's going on in a character's mind and how they deal with a crushing blow. But it almost feels too mean-spirited for even this series, since if this is really what's going on in Mikasa's head at this moment during the Trost arc, then damn, that's just too much. But we know that Eren is alive at this moment, and in that case, it almost feels like it didn't have much of a meaning. I feel conflicted about this OVA, but I do appreciate what they're going for, and hey, we got a total of 8 OVA episodes. I'm not complaining for Wit wanting to flesh out more of the world and the characters in this series. For being such an important location that the entirety of the story has built up to this moment, the basement as an episode is rather uneventful. We do have Armin coming to terms with becoming the Colossal Titan, and the remaining survivors realizing just how few of them there are left. But this feels so much like a Season 1 episode, because much of the music played in this episode is from Season 1, as well as Eren and Mikasa reliving the day when Shinganshina fell. This is it. This is what we've been building up to, but we don't have the grain of real yet until after the credits. And seeing a Zeppelin in Attack on Titan when this episode first came out gave me the biggest whiplash I had ever had from anime. It's nice having these episodes that focus more on the side characters. We finally get to see all the cadets choose their branch of the military, and of course the majority of the main cast, as well as some unnamed cannon fodder, choose the Survey Corps. I don't have much else to say here. Solid episode, but nothing too remarkable. Another episode on the same level as the last one. Solid, but nothing too major compared to what happens next. There's a lot that happens with the discovery of Rocketco Village being empty to Connie's mother, the realization that Eren can use hardening to plug up the walls, and the crew being left at Utgard Castle having to defend themselves. Once again, solid episode, just better episodes are right after this. From one hand to another is the perfect episode for this ranking because it is a dividing point on how well I remember each episode. Most of the episodes I've ranked below this one, I have a hard time remembering what exactly happens from the name alone. But starting with From One Hand to Another, I remember each episode pretty well. This episode feels like it's the last one in the entire series to have a somewhat peaceful feeling to it, which of course does a complete 180 from the post-credits scene. This is the third episode I've ranked in a row, which I can describe as a lot happens, but it's all set up for world building for what will come next. Hey YouTube Nation, this is Horsing Around Real Pranksters, and you just got pranked by John. How's it feel to be totally pranked, my guys? This episode is a lot better than people remember it to be, and fits the name well. Flegel learning to trust Hanji, Marlowe and Hitch learning to trust the Survey Corps, the common folk learning to not trust the military police. A great setup for the upcoming military coup. Dallas Zachary has a top 3 death in Attack on Titan. The guy was ended by his own torture chair, kind of. And of course, we also get sexy Eren here too. A lot of these episodes that I've ranked lately can be summed up with tension building, and I think that Gods is the best one so far. And it has one of my favorite lines in the entire series when Pixis tells Yelena that in order to tell a good lie, you gotta sprinkle the truth in there, which is why I'm saying right now that I will not be ranking every episode of One Piece, because I am not telling a lie here. I'm not even sprinkling in the truth. I'm telling you the truth straight up. I'm already ranking over 80 episodes here, but I am a mortal man, and if you're wondering if I'll rank every episode of a show that runs for that long, I'm ending the discussion now before it begins, which is probably why this angry mob is showing up. This OVA is great. It is the only time that Attack on Titan has truly had a comedic slice of life filler episode. There's no real stakes here, it's just pure fan service in multiple definitions. There's so much to love about this OVA, from the massive boar being treated like it's a titan, to Armin just casually breaking his legs and nobody really seems to care. And then of course you have the greatest moment in the entire series. The fact that this happened in an actual episode of Attack on Titan is mind-boggling, OVA or otherwise. I'd honestly rank it a lot higher. A show this bleak does need its breathing room. However, seeing how harsh Sean treats his own mother does rank it a bit lower for me. Another twofer here, and I have always put these two episodes together for good reason. We get back-to-back much-needed world building and character development episodes. They help introduce the rest of the cast that we'll see for much of the remaining series, except for everybody else who dies almost immediately after this. Such is a way of AOT. Other than the previous OVA episode, A Dim Light Amid Despair has the most slice of life and comedic moments of Attack on Titan, and then Night of the Closing Ceremony ends with such a major cliffhanger this early on in the series. I remember when I first watched it and thought, there's no way that happened. Well, guess what? It did. I think Smoke Signal sets the stage perfectly for the first arc of Season 3. You clearly understand that this arc is going to be human versus human, and that the world within the walls is turning on the Survey Corps. There's always been hints that the government and the forces that be are corrupt, but now it's plain to see that nowhere is safe. Oh yeah, and we all love how this episode ends. Behold, when Attack on Titan became an Indian soap opera. Joking aside, even if this episode is mainly just these four discussing what comes next, there's so much that unravels here and is hinted at that it really does warrant rewatching. Come back to this episode after you finish this series and you'll see what I mean. Wound is a really underrated episode. Now, I know it's annoying that it's a fallout of what happens during the Idol episode, and Eren is mostly a steaming mess, even more than he usually is, but seeing the ongoing battle taking place with soldiers dropping left and right like flies, Connie and Annie rescuing John, and then Armin being a buddy old pal to get Eren to his senses, gives us a good contender for the most eventful episode of Trost. Also, not that it's specific to this one, but good lord, Season 1 in particular has some long recaps at the beginning of each episode. The recap is longer than the OP here. It gets really old when you're watching Season 1 in one go. Once again, thank you Season 4 for not having recaps each episode. G, an episode called Female Titan. I wonder what happens. The interaction between Armin, Jean, and Reina is one of the best parts of the Female Titan arc, and this episode does a great job showcasing her strength and how unprepared the Survey Corps is, and therefore parodies for dealing with Titan shifters. These are both solid OVA episodes. Annie was desperately in need of more fleshing out, not because her Titan has no skin, but because she was such a prominent character in Season 1, and then is relatively absent until pretty late into Season 4. Once again, I really commend the world building of Attack on Titan. We didn't need to know about illegal activity in the innermost cities, and the daily going-ons about the military police, but despite her cold attitude towards everything, I think Annie did a good deed here helping out this family. I'm glad we got OVAs dedicated to both Mikasa and Annie, and while they aren't the most impactful stories in Attack on Titan, I'm not complaining at all. I would have liked to see more of these OVAs for other characters too. These are filler episodes done right. Plus, a version of Call Your Name played at the end of these two episodes is perfection. Also, this confirms for the first time in the series that Paradise does have running water, so maybe Zeke was able to tell someone the secret way that he wipes his... Strange to think that this episode has an OVA that takes place during it, which I've already covered. But in a story as depressing and bleak as Attack on Titan often is, this is by far the most hopeless episode of the entire show. The main character is dead, Mikasa thinks she's lost her will to fight, there are no Titan shifters known yet, moments of bravery are beset with horror and imminent death, and the Titans invading Trost are busy default dancing on all the cadets. Until one Titan shows up. Man, can you imagine how well the Survey Corps would have fared against a female Titan if they had Thunder Spears back then? The only way they were able to get them was because of the military coup seizing the military police's anti-personnel gear and retrofitting it to be anti-Titan gear. And I'm glad because these big ol' pencils are one of the most iconic weapons of the series now. But the best moment of this entire episode is easily this scene right here. Ragna staring down at Erwin knowing full well he can take him out and Erwin not even batting an eye. So much can be told about both of these two from this one shot. The end of the first part of the Battle of Trost. Everything seemed to go according to plan, and we get confirmation that Eren is in fact alive. I've watched this show many times, but damn, seeing Mikasa break down like that for Eren still gets me. All around, it's a perfect episode to end the good tier with. Also, on a side note, when I introduced my dad to Attack on Titan, we were watching the English dub, and the moment where Connie says,
"So basically we're gonna recruit a Titan,"
gave him such a hearty laugh. I always think back to that for this episode, so thank you Clifford Chapin for the perfect delivery of that line. It helped get my dad into this series. And now we come to the list of episodes that I truly consider to be great. I won't have as many complaints moving forward. These are all episodes that fully stand out on their own. I'm so glad we got an episode focused around Gabi coming to terms with there being actual humans on Paradise, rather than just some monsters she envisioned. This is especially important because of how not long ago she murdered Sasha, and throughout the course of this episode we see her worldview be rocked. I understand what Gabi was meant to represent from her introduction. She's clearly the Marleyan Eren Yeager, and the raid on Liberia was her version of the fall of Shiganshina. But with her being introduced in season 4, she's gotta get up to speed with the rest of the events of the series. This episode also proves just how good-spirited both Falco and Mr. Browse are, and we get a cameo from John. This is the second to last OVA for this ranking, and I watched it when it first came out, but I had forgotten how good it was until revisiting it for this video. It doesn't have anything that'll blow you away or change how you see the characters. Many of them in this OVA die when Trost begins, but I'm glad we got to see more character building for when they were all cadets. It's wild how quick the anime goes through the entire 3-year span and how it introduces most of the main characters for the rest of the series. But seeing them all work together to save their friend, it's an all-around really well put together OVA. Season 2 needed to flesh out more of the side characters, and we got that in full with the first half. Here, everyone begins to huddle in for the night, only for Utgard Castle to be under siege by Titans acting nocturnally. I really like these Survey Corps members. I can't wait to see what they do in the future. And they're dead. But fortunately, Ymir is here to save the day. The best part of this episode is without a doubt this exchange between Ymir and Ragna. It's at this moment that he knew, that she knew, that he knew. Maybe I should take back what I said about Small Blade. This episode is in line with the title. The Survey Corps failed to capture the female Titan and took way too many casualties in the process. A lot of this episode feels like a callback to the first, but in that episode, we didn't get to see Levi break internally in real time as Petra's father comes over and says the absolute worst things you can say in this situation. Other than that, we finally get a fantastic Levi fight scene. Since we only briefly saw one earlier on during the Trost arc, and I guess we also had... I remember reading comments about this episode when it came out that they animated content that wouldn't be revealed until way down the line, and at the time I didn't understand what it was I was watching, but oh boy does this episode hit so hard after watching the rest of the series. Ymir isn't even the most important character, sorry Historia, in this series, but her backstory is so heartbreaking, and we get to see what the paths look like for the first time. I also want to point out that Call of Silence is without a doubt one of the best tracks in the entire Attack on Titan music library. What a perfect title for an episode, because yeah, this is a town where everything began. I feel we get to see the Survey Corps operating at its full strength here. For one, nobody's really died yet. And two, Erwin and Armin are able to both effectively carry out their strategy. And then you have the moment where all the Titans shift, and wow, it's a sight to behold. When that happened, I swear my screen started shaking. I'm not even joking here, but for the longest time, I wondered what happened to Daz and Samuel. Maybe it's because they're the definition of throwaway, forgettable characters, but Daz somehow kept showing up in the earlier seasons. And Samuel was only noteworthy for being rescued by Sasha with getting his leg punctured. Even though they're not the most important characters in the series, we get to see how far the Alliance is willing to go to save the world, even if it means they have to make an enemy of everyone they once fought alongside. I want to briefly mention the art style change of Season 4 with switching from Studio Wit to MAPPA. The color scheme makes everything look like it's taking place at sunset to me, which makes sense that we have an episode titled Sunset. The general feeling I get from this episode is quiet uneasiness, despite the fact that the rumbling is currently going on in the background the entire time. There's a lot of great moments here. Armin breaking down, not knowing what should be done, the effects being shown of the rumbling on Paradise itself, Flock asserting himself as the leader of the Jaegerists, and Connie riding off to go feed Falco to his mother. Oh yeah, and Annie's back. This is such a pure action ride. I don't even want to talk about it because I'd just be taken away from the spectacle of everything that happened. So instead, I'll just say that when an episode doesn't have its opening until nearly 7 minutes into the runtime, you know it's going down. This has got to be the most uniquely animated episode. I'm not sure if it's rotoscoped or whatever you'd call it, but I like it. It's such a slow down paced episode that sets the tone well and humanizes the new characters we've just met and shows what life is like in Liberia. But there's this ever building dread that just keeps building up throughout the episode, and you just know something is about to happen here. The first part of Season 3 seems like it has so many climactic moments, with this being one of them. The moment where the military coup comes to fruition. I love how much this episode tells you about the various military leaders within Paradise. Erwin is willing to risk everything on his gambles, knowing that without that, you cannot win. Pixis will hesitate at nothing to do his job, despite how lazy he may seem. Niall may be the commander of the most corrupt branch of the military, but still knows that his loyalty is to the people of the walls and not the puppet government. And Dalit Zachary is a real pervert. Historia is my second favorite character in Attack on Titan after Erwin Smith, and this is such a great character development episode for both her and Ymir. Here we get to learn that Historia's entire personality has been based around finding the right moment to die as a hero. She regrets her own life, her very existence, and how she's been treated, but Ymir cuts right through that as the two develop an unbreakable bond as Historia makes a promise that she'll live her own life, and follows through on that promise by revealing to Ymir her true name. Okay, so back in 2013, someone out there on the internet just happened to spoil to me while Season 1 was still ongoing who the colossal, armored, and female titans were right before it's revealed to be Annie. I don't really remember how that happened, all I know is I was not happy about it. However, the revelations in Attack on Titan are still very well done, even if you know the twist already. And here we get an entire episode set up just for this moment to corner Annie and expose her for what she really is. And we get some fat guy parkour. The entire reveal of Annie, her laugh, her expression of hitting the breaking point and realizing that there's no other way out of this is so well done. I wonder if she made that face for Armin later on. Such a unique episode for perhaps the most rotten person in Attack on Titan. Yeah, there are people who have done worse things to this series, but Kenny is a cold-hearted killer, as we've seen him thus far. Despite that, I truly believe that he and Yuri were actually able to be friends. Kenny may have wanted the Founding Titan for himself, but they knew each other for such a long time and poured their trust into one another. Oh yeah, and props to him for raising Levi too, and with him handing the serum over, I bet Kenny died with no regrets as well. Honestly, I don't have much to say for this episode. The previous one was so unbelievable for this series that all this episode needed to do was to be as action-packed as it could be, and it delivers. I'm so glad we have a Sasha dedicated episode. Yeah, we don't have one for Connie or Jean unless you count the OVA, but Sasha is such a unique character for this series, seemingly always having such a positive outlook despite everything. However, as she approaches her village and uncovers the wretched fate that may have befallen everyone, she loses her cool only to regain herself when she needs to save a young girl. There are many moments of this series that get me hyped, but Sasha handling that Titan on her own always gets me. The raid on Stohess begins. The frenzy has begun. The moon is red. We are out of time. Wait, wrong show. For as low as I ranked many of the episodes for the second half of season 1 already, I don't hate them. I don't hate any part of this series. I just think it gets better as it goes on. But this is an excellent penultimate episode for season 1. As great as the action and animation is, I want to give it to Commander Erwin. No other episode up to this point shows you his determination, his resolve, and how he is a perfect commander of the Survey Corps. Oh, and hey, look, another episode from the second half of season 1. Even though Levi's squad gets taken out one by one, you can still tell that they were perhaps the strongest fighters humanity had within the walls. I can't be the only one to imagine what later seasons would have been like if they were still around, which is perhaps why they were killed so early. And then we get the first fight between two Titan shifters in Titan form. But Annie is clearly way better trained than Eren. Such a bleak episode, but still with some amazing action. 'Twas the episode before Christmas in a town in Marley, where a young boy named Rhino was stirring in his sleep. He had recalled a time when he was filled with cheer to become a warrior and see his father without fear, for he was an Eldian. His skills were 0, but he said, instead of a devil blood, I'll be a hero. Now colossal, now cart, now female and beast, on jaw, on armored, that'll be the one I feast. But upon his ceremony, he rushed to his father, who looked at him and said, "Away from you and your damned Eldian mother!" After giving the mission his all, he came back broken, losing everything he had, including his friends. This is enough. I might as well be deceased. But alas, what is this? Why, it's Falco Grease! With a renewed sense of being, Rhino refused to meet his maker, but unfortunately for him, this episode ends with Eren Yeager. So imagine you're an Attack on Titan fan in 2013. Imagine that season 1 ends and all is looking great. There's no way they're not going to continue this. 4 years later, we finally get season 2. And how does it begin? Immediately after season 1 ends. More than that, we get to see what happens during the end of season 1 outside of Stohess, which is something I wasn't expecting. But Beast Titan sets such a great tone for the rest of the season, both the episode and monkey business over there. You can easily tell that we're not going to see our main characters in the spotlight anytime soon. We have other people who need to be developed, except Mike. Who knew this was going to show perhaps the most impactful moment in the entire series? As we'll see in the future, Eren's father committing such a horrible atrocity, and yet we don't understand why that was. Yeah, it was to steal the Founding Titan from Frieda and give it to his son, but we haven't understood Grisha's reason to do so yet. I think if I was Eren, after seeing these memories, I'd probably break down too. And then we have a great setup for the fight that's about to take place. See? Setup episodes can be great too. Eren actually did it. SpongeBob may have ridden those babies for miles, but Eren's the reason the boulder got there in the first place. And other than that, we get to have immediate resolution to what happens next. This is such a great way to end the Trost arc, and Levi shows up wondering what in tarnation is going on. The cleanup commences of Trost, and we get to segue pretty strongly into the next arc. All around, great episode. And this is the final episode in great tier. I feel like Mikasa is the main character for the first half of season 1. She's shown to be the most capable soldier around in general, and after seeing what happened to the main character of the previous episode, we get to learn what Eren means to her before she is off to learn the truth. This is another episode that is brought up constantly throughout the series with what happens when Eren saved Mikasa in the past. But they saved each other. If Mikasa didn't awake the Ackerman bloodline within her at that moment, Eren would have died. I really like the character-focused episodes of Attack on Titan, and this is the first one. Plus, we get to see one of the most iconic moments and symbols of this entire series, with Eren wrapping the scarf around Mikasa. From here on out are episodes in Attack on Titan that truly stand above others. They may not be the most important episodes of the series overall, but they are extremely consequential and memorable. These are episodes that greatly shape the identity of Attack on Titan. There's a lot of fantastic moments in Children of the Forest, but my favorite is this scene with Levi as he realizes just how dire the situation is. Having all of his thoughts and memories on the bark of the trees behind him, wondering just how Eren's gotten everyone to this point. Incredible. But of course, the highlight here is everything that goes down at the restaurant. From Niccolo lashing out at Gabi only to poison Falco with the wine, to Eren and the Jaegers showing up at the worst time. This is another episode that sets up future conflict about to happen, but does it so well. And here marks the end of the first part of the final season, and what a cliffhanger to end on. Man, it's so great watching these episodes now because as I was committed to staying anime only through the end, having to wait an entire year for the next episode off of this one, oof, that hurt. Everything's coming together for one epic fight in Shiganshina. The fate of the world will truly be decided here and today. But stay tuned for when we get there. This is it. This is the most important Shinzo wo Sasageo of the entire series. But man, what a spectacle this episode is. Erwin leading half of the forces directly at the Armored Titan, carrying with them an army of Titans, only for absolute hell to break loose. And I don't think I talk about it enough, but good lord did Sawano pop off for the soundtrack for Season 2. I like all the season soundtracks, but I don't think there's any other season put together with its music as well as Season 2 is. You may have lost your arm, Erwin, but you won't lose my support. Even with getting his arm gnawed off, he's still commanding the troops. What a legend! Alright, taking it down a notch to the ending of the Liberia raid. For an episode that is nowhere near as action focused as the previous few, or as exposition heavy as what's to come, Assassin's Bullet still leaves such a strong impact because of the moment that we're all thinking about here. Unfortunately, I had Sasha's death spoiled for me like 3 weeks before this episode happened. But it still hits just as hard even if you know what's gonna happen. And one thing I love about Attack on Titan is when characters die, their deaths matter throughout the rest of the series and are continuously called back to. Sasha was always persevering despite whatever brutality was occurring, and through her death, Eren realizes what path he's taken everyone down. Now I don't hate Gabi because I recognize that she's meant to be the Marley Eren, but if you do hate Gabi, then here you go. Interesting how there are 2 episodes of this title in the series, and both refer to very important events that set forth the story to come. Now, the first episode of Attack on Titan is legitimately hard to follow as it sets the stage perfectly for what this series is. But now we get to see the fallout of the fall of Shiganshina, as well as the first appearance of the Armored Titan. But here you learn that there is no hope to be found, this world sucks, everyone is doomed, you're all going to die. That's the tone that this episode leaves you with. Enjoy the show! Now, after watching the first season, I never would have expected us to get an entire episode dedicated to Keith Shadis since he's such a minor character up to this point. But that's something that's great about Attack on Titan. Everyone is a piece of the puzzle and impacts the world around them. Shadis was always a failure. He never amounted to anything, he was never seen as brave by anyone other than Grisha, and resigned from the Survey Corps realizing that it would be better off without him. Bystander is such a tragic episode about a man who never lived up to the expectations he had for himself. He even failed to prevent Eren from joining the Scouts as he still mastered ODM gear despite tampering with his equipment. But despite that, the final message left off from Carla rings so loudly. Who cares if you're not special? You were born into this world. You're already special because you're here today. And here we get to see the continuation of Season 4, and damn is this episode brutal. Even for Attack on Titan standards, the amount of gore and bloodshed is almost too much. Marley proves why they're the military powerhouse of the world. They just have far superior weapons and technology compared to Paradis, and have no issue mowing tons of soldiers down like flies. Plus, we get an outright brawl with Eren with his newfound Warhammer powers and the Armored and Jaw Titans. This episode is a sheer spectacle. Hey, Attack on Titan has a beach episode, and it's by far the most bleak and tragic beach episode I've ever seen. We finally got here. Everything has been building up to this moment. Armin has lived and reached the sea as well as several others. But as much as this is a moment of celebration, There's so much dread in the air as Eren closes the episode and the season with wondering if they truly are free and if they will need to kill everything on the other side of the sea in order to attain true freedom. This is perhaps the most underrated episode of Attack on Titan. We get to the climactic match between Historia and her father as she delivers a final blow to not only defeat him but cement herself as a true queen and monarch of Paradise. God, she's so great. But we get other great character focus moments too, with Eren breaking himself out of his depressive slump and realizing that he has a job to do, and Erwin realizing he can't command Historia but will allow her to fight to prove her worth as the ruler of the walls. Really interesting that in this episode we get to see what happened to Marco during the Trost arc. I mean, yeah, we knew he died, but we didn't know the full details and how that was a moment of Reina's breaking point. But other than that, this is where the battle to retake Shiganshina takes a brutal turn as Hanji's squad is wiped out by the nuke that is the Colossal Titan, as Eren and the others realize what they have to do next in order to not just reach the basement, but to get out of here alive. Man, am I glad I stayed anime only, because I had no idea that this is how season 4 would begin. I remember when this episode first came out and many other anime onlys were wondering, is this even Attack on Titan still? Sure, the outside world would have more advanced weaponry, but we didn't expect full-on World War I to happen. One thing I love about this episode is that not only is it high octane and shows the brutality that will come with the rest of season 4, but you can tell that the era of Titans is coming to an end. Even with the armored beast, and Jaw Titan, as well as a bunch of pure Titans, Marley barely got away without losing a Titan shifter in the victory from the naval bombardment. The other side of the sea does a tonal and direction shift expertly that comes with season 4. I've got several pure action fests in a row here. Thaw is another episode I find to be underrated, and I don't know why people don't talk about this one as much, when it's perhaps the loudest episode of Attack on Titan. You've got so much going on with the Titan fight in Shiganshina, which reflects a lot of the Trost arc. However, now you've got Thunder Spears, and damn, it just makes me wonder how much easier the fights in the first 2 seasons would have been if the soldiers all had Thunder Spears. No need to get close to a Titan's nape, just bomb them. Oh yeah, and the entire episode, the rumbling is constantly happening. But other than that, I do like how Gabi saves Sasha's family and makes it up with Kaya. I hope these two meet again after the ending of the series. Hey look, another action fest. It's almost like my name is Action First. But here we get the final battle before the final battle, as the Alliance takes on the plethora of Jaegerist forces at the port. And I love Falco's Jaw Titan's design. It really makes him look like a warrior. Yeah, the Alliance has much greater experience and skill than the Jaegerists, but Floch holds his own. And then the episode ends with an incredible send-off to both Magath and Shadis, who in their final moments you can tell became good friends, as they both shared the same hobby as recruiting and training child soldiers. Out of all the Levi fights, Levi vs Kenny Squad is my favorite and has some of, if not the best animation of the entire series. I mean, this is pure eye candy right here. We don't deserve Arifumi Imai. Oh yeah, and Eren gets kidnapped. Again. Now that's not the entire episode, as we also get more in depth into the ongoing political struggle to oust the scouts and their fight to bring out the truth. But man, we all know why we love this episode so much and why we love Levi. Also, I love Levi and Hanji's varying reactions to torturing people. Can somebody please make a spin-off sitcom featuring these two? At least they get the job done. This is the most impactful moment at this point in the series, other than the first episode. It's only episode 5, and the main character of Attack on Titan dies. Now you can guess that seeing as how there's at least one more episode after this, that may not be the case. But when I first watched it, I didn't know. I just knew I needed to keep watching. And this comes right after having back-to-back episodes bringing out a little bit of hope into this bleak world, only for it all to be snuffed out in an instant. Eren's squad were all rookies. They stood no chance, especially since the first Titan they went up against was an abnormal. And man, Santa Claus here got real close to becoming the main character. Poor Armin, man, he doesn't deserve any of this. And now we've reached the final episode in this tier, the finale for the first season of Attack on Titan. I want to note that when Eren covers himself in flames when he's going berserk was an anime original moment. And I still see some people debate on the Attack Titan being able to set themselves on fire, but this was just an artistic choice, and it works well because, wow, do you feel humanity's rage within Eren here? This was a perfect way to close the first season out as Eren and Annie fight and transform the very city around them into a bloodstained battlefield, leaving nothing but destruction, death, and dust in their path. But to me, my favorite moment of this entire episode is Mikasa just looking at Annie as she plummets towards Eren, and all she says is, "with Erwin's reaction right here being a close second. And of course, we're left with a cliffhanger until season 2, as now we see the wall houses titans within it. Here we go, the legendary tier. These are the episodes of Attack on Titan that truly shape the series and give it its identity. From here on out, these episodes you can easily make the case for being the best in the series, ones that we'll never forget. And here it is, the final OVA episodes, which I've put together since, come on, we all know that they're best watched back to back, and the second Levi OVA is the longest non-special episode of Attack on Titan. Before I go over anything Levi related, I just want to say this is really the only time in the series we get to see Erwin kick ass in ODM gear, since every other time he's more in a commanding role, and by showing their true colors and skills and how useless the MPs are, the Survey Corps manages to capture Levi, Isabel, and Farlan. Now going into this from the get-go, you know how things are going to end up. It's Attack on Titan after all, and we get a true prequel OVA for how Levi became a member of the Survey Corps. But even knowing what's going to happen and the fate that lies in wait for his friends, these OVA episodes do a great job setting them up and the other soldiers who perish. And note, I'm putting both episodes here, as while much of the attention is placed on the sheer brutality and revenge that Levi dishes out on that abnormal Titan, both episodes build this moment up in Levi's choice to continue to be a scout. As with the title, he will never regret the decision of choosing to stay with the Survey Corps. He has nowhere else to go, no one else on his side, but Commander Erwin is looking forward to something he can't see, and Levi will continue along that path. Zeke may be one of the most twisted and evil characters in this series, but the poor guy was in a losing situation his entire life. His parents brainwashed him and his grandparents brainwashed him as well. The only solace he ever had in his life was Tom Ksaver, who was a true father figure to Zeke, and he was the son that Tom was unable to have due to his wife taking both his son and her own lives. Zeke isn't a good guy, that's pretty obvious by now, but we get to see how he's gone down this path. He truly believes that he's the sole salvation for all of humanity and that the only way out is to prevent Eldians from ever being born again. Historia laying the smackdown on her father is one of my favorite moments in all of anime, let alone Attack on Titan. When it happens, I get out of my seat and cheer for her. It is in that moment that she defies not only her father, but the rest of her royal lineage. She refuses to be a pawn to her ancestors' will as well as her father's, and chooses the most erratic and dangerous path for everyone to follow. That is the making of a ruler, not bending to the will of those before you, but doing what needs to be done for the better outcome, even if Historia herself doesn't even care what happens next. She's just so sick and tired of all the lies, all the grief, and so she's going to follow through on what Ymir told her and live a life that she's proud of, even if she's viewed as the worst girl who ever lived. Also, shoutouts to Zero Eclipse, one of the best songs in all of Attack on Titan. God, I love this episode. As tense and suspenseful as Eren's conversation with Armin and Mikasa is, I can't help but laugh at the fact that Gabi is just right there the entire time, probably shitting herself in fear at Eren and not really saying or doing anything. But man, is it hard to watch Eren confronting Armin and Mikasa this way. Even knowing why he did it now, why he's treating them both like this so they can face him later on, it's still, well, savage to watch. And of course, we get Levi vs. Zeke, round 3. Maybe 2? Does Liberio even count since that was staged? Either way, Levi is basically the win button for facing any Titan, especially Zeke. I don't think any other episode earns its title more than this one. And here's the final episode I've ranked for Season 1. The first one. I love introducing people to Attack on Titan for the first time, and did any of us have expectations that the first episode would be this dark and horrific? Episode 1 of Attack on Titan is regarded often as one of the best first episodes in anime, and for good reason. This was a tone that Attack on Titan needed to begin with, needed to set the stage with. We learned about the dangers of the Titans early on with the Survey Corps returning, which foreshadows the fall of Shiganshina, and the ensuing catastrophe that comes with it. Plus, watching this episode after watching the rest of the show, it's mind-blowing how much foreshadowing there is for the entire series, including the final episode in just the first one. That's a masterclass in writing. Great job, Isayama. So much action and devastation is packed into the raid on Liberio. It's clear that Marley had superior military strength exponentially compared to Paradis, so the attack was coordinated to cripple that. Take out the top brass, the naval fleet, and as many soldiers as possible, but of course casualties are all over the place, as we can see how evil Eren has become, especially with how he obtains a Warhammer Titan. It's just gut-wrenching. Overall, not much else I can say other than these two back-to-back are pure spectacles. Hey Levi, we're in a bit of a pickle here. What do you think we should do? Perfect Game begins what many consider to be the perfect trilogy of Attack on Titan episodes. But what's great about this series is how many trilogy of episodes you can call perfect trilogies. Anyway, the battle to reclaim Shiganshina goes from worst to impossible. Nearly all the Survey Corps is wiped out, the Colossal Titan is running rampant, the Armored is recovering, Connie is telling dumb jokes, and everyone knows they're about to die. This truly feels like the most hopeless moment of the entire series. However, that's when Erwin is told by Levi to give up on his dream and die. He follows through with the advice he's always held on to, that you must be willing to sacrifice everything if you want to achieve anything. And the highlight of this episode is Erwin's speech. Now, I can't speak for anyone else, but I, after hearing a speech like that, would willingly charge with him on the front lines, knowing full well I'd be turned into a fine red mist shortly after. But as long as I charge with Erwin, that's all that matters. Scream is an incredible episode that paints a detailed picture of hopelessness in the world of Attack on Titan. Soldiers are dropping left and right, including Hannes, and it seems like there's no way out of here. But in a moment of desperation, when Mikasa herself believes that the end is nigh, Eren strikes a smiling Titan and uses the power of the Founder for the first time. I can't help but feel that he could have unleashed the rumbling right then and there if he was aware of it, but did what he needed to do in order to save everyone in that moment. This is one of the most emotional episodes of Attack on Titan. From Mikasa's near confession, to Ymir saying goodbye to Historia, to realizing how many people died in the rescue mission. But all is not lost. Eren has been rescued, and now they have learned the first bit of information that they've ever learned of the Titans, that they have been people this entire time. Without a doubt, one of my personal favorite episodes, and it's one without any action but perfect exposition and has my favorite line in the entire series. We get more information about Grisha's past and how he inherited the Attack Titan. And speaking of which, we get a much-deserved title drop in this episode, handled brilliantly by Hanji, of course. From here on, the truth of humanity outside the walls is revealed to everyone within Paradis, and how the rest of the world views them all as devils who need to be exterminated. I love how Eren becomes past Eren in the flashback here, and now we know why. But to me, the most pivotal moment of the entire series is the final line of dialogue between Eren Kruger and Grisha. He has to save Mikasa, Armin, and everyone else. And when questioned on it, all he can say is, "not just a legendary tier, but this part of Season 4. We finally get the much needed episode focusing on what happened in between Season 3 and 4, with the Survey Corps finally coming face to face with the greatest threat of all. Clowns! Well, at least to Levi. Man, poor Mikasa. She seems to blame herself for what she told Eren this night, and if she said what was truly on her mind, then perhaps they could have run away together. But the true turning point of the series comes with the meeting of the nations of the world. Even the very Eldians throughout hate Paradis and want to see its destruction. There will be no end to this conflict without bloodshed, and so Eren goes on his own to carry out his plan. And witnessing the rumbling at the end is an unforgettable experience. Eren's made his mind clear. He will destroy the world for Paradis. Hey all, if you've made it to this part of the video, then thank you so much for watching. The second part of this ranking will be out soon. I wanted to split this up into 2 videos to make sure I could get this one out first and to really hype up the top 10 best episodes, as they're truly special because they were born into this world. Also because today marks the 1-year anniversary of the first upload on this channel. If you've watched any of my videos before, or even just this one, all I want to say is thank you so much. I'm having such a great time making these, and I can't wait to make more anime content for many years to come. If you enjoyed this video, then please sub for more. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.